So here's a funny tidbit before the review starts. After I saw the Grand Budapest Hotel for the first time in late 2014 or early 2015, I'm not exactly sure when, I recommended it to my grandparents on my mother's side. They don't exactly like movies at the same level as I do, but overall we like a lot of the same stuff. So I told them the movie was great, but then they saw it and they hated it. The only reason they gave me for why they hated it was just because they found it stupid and weird, which I guess is because they've never seen a Wes Anderson movie before. But still, I thought they would have enjoyed the movie. I mean, they like weird movies too. They grew up in the 50s. So anyway, they didn't like it, and it started a funny in-joke where almost every time I see them, one of them makes fun of the fact that I love the movie so much. They call the movie Grand Budapest or just Budapest. They never call it Grand Budapest Hotel. And when I try to recommend a movie to them, there's always a chance they'll say something like, "Why? You told me I like Budapest." There isn't really a joke to this bit, it's just something fun I wanted to share. Anyway, let's get to the actual review. The Grand Budapest Hotel is a film directed by auteur director Wes Anderson, and in my opinion, it's his best film. It follows a hotel concierge, Monsieur Gustave H, and his lobby boy / partner Zero. Following the death of Gustave H's elderly lover, one of many, the two become involved in a very intricate plot involving a priceless Renaissance painting, the future of a family fortune, a failing country on the brink of war, and a hitman played by Willem Dafoe. As I've just said, I consider this to be Wes Anderson's best movie. It contains a lot of his trademark stylistic choices, such as extremely dry humor and dialogue, and if you're not accustomed to stuff like that, then there's a slight chance that it might annoy you, but the film's qualities are so well done and beautiful that it can be easy to overlook those aspects. I think this film is where Anderson's style works the best, it has his most appealing visuals, the characters are the most memorable out of all his films. Everything on a production level, from the costumes to the sets to the props, are just perfect. Then you got Alexandre Desplat's score, which is unquestionably excellent, and it has the best comedic moments out of all of Anderson's films. They actually remind me of Charlie Chaplin movies from the 1930s, where they weren't talkies, but Chaplin still used the medium of sound to give the visual gags another layer of hilarity. The cast is absolutely wonderful, especially Ralph Fiennes as Gustave H. I believe he's known to the general public primarily for his villainous roles like Voldemort from Harry Potter or Barry the Tiger from Dolittle. But here he's playing this wonderfully eccentric and funny character, and it really shows how versatile he is as an actor. At this point, it's one of his best roles.
You see, there are still faint glimmers of civilization left in this barbaric slaughterhouse that was once known as humanity. Indeed, that's what we provide in our own modest, humble, insignificant... fuck it.
There's also F. Murray Abraham, who's another standout in the cast for me, as is Tony Revolori. Actually, the entire cast is fantastic. There's Willem Dafoe, Tilda Swinton, Jeff Goldblum, Edward Norton, Jude Law, Saoirse Ronan. I think I'm getting better at pronouncing that name. The film features this eccentrically dark comedic thriller, but it's led by main characters who have a really touching and poignant relationship with each other. Specifically, the friendship between Gustave H and Zero is simply wonderful. They have great chemistry, and it's really funny to see how these two polar opposite personalities interact with each other. I also like Zero's romance with the character Agatha. It's pretty cute. I mean, I think it's a little underwritten, but it works. I think it works. Alright, one more time. Saoirse Ronan. Saoirse Ronan. I think I got it. The film's story was inspired by the work and life of Stefan Zweig. Now, in order to really flesh out this review at this point, I have to do something that I don't really like to do usually. I'm going to spoil the movie somewhat. So spoiler warning, and also content warning, self-harm/suicide. You probably have no idea who Stefan Zweig is, and neither did I before watching this movie, but here's a basic rundown of who he was. Zweig was an Austrian author who was popular during the 1920s and 30s. His work ranged from biographies of major historical European figures and fictional melodramas. Stylistically, he was known for writing stories within stories, something which the film itself uses. The main plot and conflict of the film is framed as a story being told to the character of the author, which is also framed as the memories of the author in old age, which is then again framed as the novel which the author wrote, and a young girl is reading it at his grave. Zweig's reign as one of the most popular authors of his time would end with the rise of the Nazi Party. Since he was Jewish, he had to leave Austria and eventually settle down in Brazil, where he would stay for the rest of his life. Finally, in 1942, after failing to see hope for Europe's future while it was under the control of the Nazis, both Zweig and his wife died by suicide. It was an incredibly tragic way for this man's life to end, and the reason I bring this up is because this man's life story is directly connected with the message of the movie. The main characters go through this story, they struggle to prove their innocence to the authorities, they have to survive murder attempts by members of a corrupt family, and they're put into almost constant jeopardy, and in the end, they win. But the thing is that this whole story is set up against Zubrowka, the fictional country the film is set in, slowly falling into the control of a fascist military party. I don't want to exactly give the ending away, but when the characters directly experience the effects of that social collapse, their victory more or less turns into an empty one. In the secondary plot, we see Zero as an old man. While he's wealthy, he's also alone and sad and really just a tragic figure. So of course the insinuation by this ending is that this whole conflict which the characters have struggled through was ultimately for nothing and would just be forgotten with the passage of time. A good symbolic example is how the priceless Renaissance painting from the main story, essentially the object that kicks off the entire journey for the characters, is seen in the secondary story being left on a wall and treated like an unimpressive decoration you see at an open house. But despite that, the Grand Budapest Hotel ultimately tells a story of, I want to say, bittersweet redemption. The characters face tragic ends, but their struggles are not forgotten because their story is passed on to future generations through the author, and their victory in a way once again becomes a wholesome one. So to cap it all off, the Grand Budapest Hotel is this wonderfully funny and eccentrically beautiful comedy drama with great performances and production value, but the real core of what makes it so outstanding is that the fictional ending manages to have the same effect in reality. It pays tribute and brings attention to a larger-than-life figure who lived a tragic life but still achieved so much and deserves to be remembered. As I've said, I don't really like detailing specific plot points about movies, but hopefully here, doing so has allowed me to communicate the full extent of what I like about this movie so much. So once again, this is a great movie and I highly recommend it. If this review doesn't convince my grandparents that the movie is great, then I don't know what does.
I'm reminded of a verse. The painter's brush touched the inchoate face by ends of nimble bristles.